Shalom lekulam, and welcome to our weekly study in the Torah portion. This week's Torah portion is Parsha Yitro, and in this week's Torah portion, we're gonna be studying the Ten Commandments indirectly, but we're gonna concentrate mostly on the relationship between the names Elohim and the name Yohed and Vavhe, and how they are related to mercy, Rahamim, and how these names, as we see the codes inside the Torah portion, how these names will give you or will give us basically a hint that the Creator was using the side of judgment, but it was sweetened by the side of mercy. So we're going to be studying that, and also we're going to be studying how these force, as we call the force of the Torah, came basically from all these different levels that we call the five Parsufim, Galgalta, Absak, Ma, and Bon, and how they're related to the name of the Creator, spelled basically in a different way that we see in these four, by using the first, the second, the third, and the fourth, which is Chokmah, Bina, Seram, Pin, and Mahut, that will give us a number which is 886, and that number 886 have to do with something very important that we're gonna see that in order to study. Also, we're gonna be seeing that Yitro is gonna be giving some counsel to Moshe so he can administer justice and also govern and manage better the duties that he has, and it is by administering or basically by creating a hierarchy of magistrates and justices. And what we're gonna see is that arrangement has to do with the angels of the chariot, and we're gonna study that, how then all these start falling into place, and how basically a system is created so the people of Israel, as they're walking in the desert and as they receive more revelations, they can reach this level that we call the land of Israel. Okay, so I'll see you after the introduction so we can start our lesson. Welcome back. As always, we are going to start our lesson with to put the Parsha into context, or study into context, by talking about what the Parsha talks about. So in this Parsha starts in Exodus, that is the book of Shemot, chapter 18, verse 1, to chapter 20, verse 23. And in this Parsha, what we're going to see is that Moshe meets his father-in-law, Yitro. And Yitro basically comes out of his land, Midian, and meet Moshe with Moshe's wife, Zipporah, and Moshe's two sons. And the reason he wants to meet Moshe is because he heard about the wonders that the Creator or God did with the people of Israel. And what we're gonna see is that Yitro not only meets with Moshe, but there's a code inside the Parsha that tells us that it wasn't only a meeting, it was also that Yitro became part of the people of Israel. Basically, like he converted, he became part of the Brit, of the covenant. And what we're gonna see is that eventually Moshe cannot get overwhelmed with so many basically administration duties that he has in order to have everything going on or have it under control when it comes to the people of Israel, basically administering justice and governing properly what is going on with the people of Israel. So Yitro advises Moshe to appoint a hierarchy of magistrates and judges. And as we're gonna see, there's these different levels have to do with different types of angels that have to do with the chariot of God, as we call it. Then after that, we're gonna see that the children of Israel, they camp opposite to Mount Sinai. That's very important because Har Sinai, the name Sinai comes from the word hate, sinit. So opposite means, opposite to hate, right? So what's opposite to hate? Love, right? So this is something that we're gonna see as we read articles, Kabbalistic articles about the Matan Torah, the giving of the Torah, is that they camp as one man and one heart. They stood there, in the foot of Mount Sinai as one man and one heart. And it's under this hatred, this mountain of hatred, that they needed to act as one soul. And in this way, we're gonna see like some Kabbalistic test. This text will tell us that the mountain was basically two things. It will serve you as a place for revelation of the Torah, or it can serve you as your own bury site. It will bury you, basically. The mountain will bury you there. So that's how important it was, because it was about the hatred. They needed to eliminate hatred in order to receive the Torah. And in that foot of the mountain of Sinai, what we're gonna see is that they become chosen to be a kingdom of priests. And they become also what is known a holy nation, and this is a holy nation among all the other nations. And when the Creator, or through Moshe, basically asking, are you ready for this? They proclaim all together, all that God has spoken, we shall do. So they're accepting this. Basically, it's this moment, what we need to see is that standing in the foot of Mount Sinai is like standing under, if you know about Judaism, especially about the wedding, or Jewish wedding, standing under a kuppah. It's part of the Jewish wedding, under a canopy. So here they have a mountain of hatred as a canopy, right? And that canopy can mean, basically a good thing, a revelation of the Creator, a relationship with the Creator, or it can be also their own very side, because they did not connect with themselves, and therefore they cannot connect with the Creator. But they did, so they were able to receive the Torah. Even though, as we're gonna see, that in the 6th day of the third month, which is Sivan, the month of Sivan, this is 7 weeks after the Exodus. That's why we celebrate after Pesach. We count 7 weeks, and then we have Shavuot, which is Matan Torah. The entire nation received the Torah, and as we know, we're gonna know it as Matan Torah. So keep that in mind, that name Matan Torah, because there's an article that we study written by Baal HaSulam called Matan Torah, and it has to do with being one man and one soul. God, according to the Torah, descends on the mountain, and it was like thunder, lightning, smoke, and like a blast of the shofar. And he calls Moshe to ascend. So Moshe ascends on top of that mountain that we call mountain of Sinai, a mountain of hatred. And it's there that he receives the Torah. And that's also, something that is very important, because we're gonna see that he receives their 10 commandments, and he's basically believing God only, not to worship idols, or take God's name in vain, keep the Shabbat, honor the parents, not to murder, not to commit adultery, not to steal, not to bear false witness, or covet another person's property. But as the people receive that, and this is Mahut, as we mentioned before, right? And in the past, the people of Israel represent Mahut, the Shekhinah. As this is happening, what's happening is that this vessel that we call Bnei Yirael, they tell Moshe that this is so intense and we cannot bear it. So they start asking him to receive the Torah from the Creator, and then he can give it to them. So basically, he's telling them, we need a filter, otherwise we will break, right? We want to receive this light, but we want to receive this light in a proper way. We want to receive this light in a good way. And the reason is, if you have studied Kabbalah, is that there are vessels of egoistic vessels within the people of Israel. As we're gonna see later, there's this sin called the sin of the golden calf, which is part of these, vessels or people within Israel that still have that egoistic nature, and it's not corrected. So in order not to break, like it happened with the Shevirah HaKalim, when it received too much light, because the vessels were not ready to receive that much light, the people of Israel see that this is happening to them, and they rather have Moshe receive the Torah and give it to them. And then, basically give it to them. And to this day, every year, we still receive that light from Moshe. Every time we study the Torah, every week on Shabbat, we are receiving some of that light from Mount Sinai through Moshe. And the reason is because the light is so big that we have to receive it through generations, and generation after generation, we have to receive more and more and more of that light. And I don't know about you, but my personal experience is the following. Every year, even though I'm reading the same story over and over, I find always something new. That means a new light, a new revelation is given. And that's what it's supposed to be for everybody who study Torah. Every year they should learn something new. The same story, but there's a different level this time and of understanding. So, before we start the study, I want to remind you that the intention for this Parsha is the same intention as the Parsha before. This Parsha is part of 6 Parshiot called Shovavim. Shovavim means irresponsibility. And what we're doing is, during this time that we're studying these 6 Parshiot, which next week is going to be the last Parsha of Shovavim, is we're correcting our irresponsible actions or irresponsible thinking about Torah, mitzvot, good deeds, and loving our neighbors as ourselves. So what we're doing is, during this time, is that we're trying to mitigate the effects in our lives of the law of cause and effects due to the irresponsible actions and thinking that we have done before. And the reason that we're doing this through these 6 Parshiot or 6 weeks is because Saturn, who basically rules the zodiacal signs of Capricorn and Aquarius, he is the enforcer of this law of cause and effect in our lives. So we're trying to mitigate that by having the intention every time we are studying Kabbalah, or we're studying Torah, or we are even doing our prayers during the weekdays or Shabbat, that we are trying to connect to certain Sephirot, and that each of these Parshiot that we're studying are connected to Sephirot. Last week Parsha was Beshalach, and it was connected to the Sephirah Netzach. This week we're studying Yitro, and Yitro is connected to the Sephirah Hod. Next week, Mishpatim, that will be Yesod, and Yesod is that vessel that is the one that receives all the light from all the Sephirot from Serampin and gives it to Malchut. So that's basically what we're doing. We're attracting the light, and we're receiving that light in our vessel, and we're going to be using it for responsible in a responsible way, and not to forget what we're studying or what we're receiving during these 6 Parshiot. Lucky enough for us, these Parshiot have to do with Matan Torah. We're receiving that light of Torah, and that's what we need to concentrate on, how this light can help us correct our egoistic nature, in which we need to transform this egoistic nature from a desire to receive for the self to a desire to receive for the sake of giving, and also to a desire to give for the sake of giving. Okay, so let's start with our study. And as we're studying, we will talk about different subjects. However, there's a subject that is very important here, and it's the Matan Torah, the giving of the Ten Commandments. However, we're not going to talk about the Ten Commandments and itself. We're going to talk about other things. And the reason is because the topic of the Ten Commandments itself is a whole lesson that will take longer to explain each commandment according to each of the Sefirot of the Tree of Life and according to Kabbalah. But having that in mind, we're not going to leave you hanging. So if you have the Zohar, if you have Kabbalah Center Zohar, that will be on volume 21. What you're going to find is in there an section, and it's actually on for Parsha Pinchas, the volume that I just showed you. And in that volume, Pinchas, with the Sulam section, in the Sulam commentary, the section called the explanation about Malchut, item 842, all the way to 857, there's an explanation of how these commandments basically come down to Malchut, Bnei Yirael, and they become one. There's an explanation there about that. However, we're going to read only one paragraph, and that paragraph basically is the introduction of what is going to be explained. And what you're going to see in that section is that they talk about 12 commandments. And the reason it's like 12 commandments because even though it says 10 commandments, there's some commandments that can be divided into two. So and that's something that you're going to, if you study the 10 commandments and you find different articles, whether it's religious, Kabbalistic, or otherwise, you're going to see that there are different people saying that the first commandment can be divided into two, so it might not be 10, might be 11. Other people say, well, it's not necessarily 10 or 11, might be 12. So the Zohar talk about 12 commandments in here, but in reality it's 10 commandments. Everybody agrees it's 10 commandments. So let's read. This is verse 842 from the explanation about Malchut in Pinchas. And the 10 commandments were given on 2 tablets, 5 on each. And Malchut includes them, for they are the 5 Sefirot from Keter to Geburah, and the 5 Sefirot from the central pillar, which is Tiferet, to the daughter, which is Malchut. And they are twice Hey. Hey is the Hebrew letter Hey, equals 5, so 2 times 5 is 10. And also the 2 Heys is Bina and Malchut, so basically Bina is included in there. He asks, if the 10 commandments are from the 10 Sefirot, it is then possible to speak with 10 mouths, with each Sephirah speaking with its own special mouth. He answers, he included all 10 commandments in the only daughter, which is Malchut, and all of them became one. Thus the 10 commandments became incorporated within Malchut. And so it is that Vav, the letter Vav, equals 6. 6 Sefirot of Serampin, which is Tiferet, that is called voice. Voice cannot be perceived until it joins with speech. Speech, which is Malchut, and this is why it is written, you heard the voice of the words. That's Devarim 4, verse 12, where voice alludes to Serampin and words to Malchut. So what it's telling you here is Serampin basically is the receiver of that light from above. And we're gonna know that the Creator and his different names. When it comes to the revelation of the Torah, we like to say Hakadosh Baruch Hu, basically talking about this part that we identify as Seramping. And then the Shekhinah Malchut, that's basically the congregation of Israel, Knesset Israel. And it's only when these two connect, the meaning of the Matan Torah, when you have the Hakadosh Baruch Hu connected with the Bnei Yirael, that then this, what it says here, is that Tifaret, which is basically the voice, cannot be heard until it joins and then becomes speech, and then it becomes, something that it can be heard. Okay, and this is the reason of the thunder. And they even say, it's in the Torah, said they saw the thunder, which is something interesting. You see lightning, but to see thunder, that's something that is very interesting, and it has a meaning as well. Okay, so this is what we have here, is basically the unification of the Vav and the He at that moment, all because the children of Israel became one as one man and one soul. And they were able to receive the Torah, this light from above that was channeled through a He called Binah. So there's two He's, Binah and Malchut, right? So this is why we have 10 commandments. However, this is all from Keter, all this light come from Keter all the way to Malchut, so we have 10. But you have to think about that. It's Binah and Malchut. Binah and Malchut decide to give, decide to receive. They unite as one, so now we are receiving in order to give. And that's the point of the Matan Torah, is receive the Torah, not to keep it to ourselves. And for us to become this special group of people that don't want to share the light with the world because we're special, we're chosen. We're supposed to share that light. We're supposed to be the seramping, if you will, of the whole world, and share that light that we have received in Mount Sinai with the rest of the world, so we can make the world better. Also, if we receive that light, let's say you receive the wisdom of Torah, the wisdom of Kabbalah, the secrets of Torah, you need to share it as well. As you receive, you need to share it. If you keep it to yourself, you become that vessel that is egoistic. Basically, you become a klipot. Okay, so you have to share that light. Share that light. Give light to the world. I know that you're gonna find, a lot. I see this a lot on Facebook. A lot of segulot for parnasa, to have, basically money, to have, make sure we have food in our tables and that kind of stuff. All that is okay, but that's not Kabbalah. The whole point of Kabbalah is about us working internally and connecting with other people and becoming that Knesset Israel, that congregation of Israel, those who yearn to go directly to the Creator, Yashar Kel. Those things, those are fine, but that has to do with our physical life. We have to think about the other life that we have, which is a spiritual life. To think about the food that we have on the table, about the shelter and everything is important, and that's part of human nature. But that has to do with the animal nature. The spiritual nature has to deal with something bigger, and that bigger thing is working on ourselves, understanding that the people that we may don't like the most, they're part of our soul, and that we need to see them as part of our soul that is not corrected. In fact, as my Kabbalah teacher will tell you and teach you, we need to think that person that we think that is doing the wrong thing and that kind of stuff, the person is perfect. This person is perfect. What I see in that person is part of my soul that is not corrected. So I'm the one who is imperfect. The person is corrected. They came perfect to the world. I'm the one who needs to correct. If I correct myself, that person will be corrected as well, because I'm part of that soul. So somehow I'm going to influence that. If everybody starts thinking that way, everybody will become one man, one soul. And understand that when I say one man, one soul, according to Kabbalah, that includes the female aspects all the time. The male aspect cannot do anything, as we're gonna see. The vav cannot do anything if the female, which is the hey, the last hey, is ready to receive, right? They need to be ready to receive. So let's go to our study in the Torah portion. As always, we're using the commentaries of Rabbi Yaakov Abu Haseira, known also as the Abir Yaakov, and we're going to read from chapter 18, verse 1 in Shemot. Yitro, the priest of Midian, the father-in-law of Moshe, heard everything that Elohim did to Moshe and to Israel, his people, that the Yod and the Hevav, Yohe and the Vavhe had taken Israel out of Egypt. And it says here, he start asking why the verse first uses the name Elohim, but then it has the name Yod-He and Vav-He. And he says maybe this is alluding or saying that the decree of slavery in Egypt was made through the name Elohim, which represents the attributes of judgment. This is according to Zohar, volume 3, page 30b. However, when this name is spelled in full, it becomes sweetened, as he's now going to explain. So the name Elohim may be spelled in full as Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. And this has the numerical value of 300. This is the same as the letter, I think I have it in the other one here, the letter Men, Tzadik, Pet, Ain, actually it should be an Ain here. And what's happening is the following. This is according to the Atbach. The Atbach, basically, if you look at the Mem, where you're gonna see the Mem, you're gonna look at the opposite letter. The opposite letter is the Yod. Then you have the Tzadi. The Tzadi, which is here, is a Hey. And then the Pei. The Pei, it's here. What you're gonna see is the opposite for this Pei is a Vav. Then the final Tzadi, the Tzadi Sofit, which is this one here, the Tzadi, is another He. So what you have is a Yod, then we're gonna have the He, and then a Vav, and then again the He. And this is using the Hebrew Atbach for basically the Gematria, where you use the opposite Aleph, Tav, Ben, Shit, and that's where the Atbach name comes from, Atbach. And that's what we're using here. And this equals 300, which equals to the Yod-He and the Vav-He, meaning that Elohim, when spelled in this way, equals to 300, which equals basically Yod-He, Vav-He. So what does this mean? This is what he wants. He says also we need to understand that also 300 is the numerical value of the word with mercy. And as we have studied in the Parsha before, Elohim and the Yod-He and Vav-He, basically Elohim equals or is the same as Ani Yod-He Vav-He, Ani the Lord, I am the Lord. Ani Yod-He Vav-He, when you add these numbers, Ani is 61, Yod-He and Vav-He is 26, equals 87. And Elohim is 87 because it gives you the name 86, and you add the koler plus 1 and gives you 87. So this is how you get the 300. However, Ani, Yod-He, and Vav-He, when spelled in full as well, what you're gonna see is that it gives you 300. So all these names are related somehow, right? With the 300. The 300 means Barachamin, mercy. Okay, so it means mercy, Barachamin. Now, the name Elohim may also be spelled in full as Aleph, Lamed, Hey, Yod, Mem. This equals 295. And 295 is equal to the word Ratzah. And Ratzah means desire. Okay? Also, the name Elohim may be spelled in full as Aleph, Lamed, Hey with an Aleph, and Mem. So you see the difference here. This stays the same. Lamed stays the same. The Hey is the part that basically change. And in here, I need to add the Yod. Let me add that here quickly. Okay, Yod. And what changes basically is the Hey, the spell of the Hey. Here with an Yod, here with a Hey, and here with an Aleph. And with the Aleph, spell with an Aleph, what we're gonna see is 290. Then plus 1 will give you 292, and that is equal to the word refuah. And refuah means healing. So healing from what? You know, what is it that they need to be healed? So it is said that the Creator has given or has made or created the evil inclination and has given the Torah as a medicine, as a spice. So basically, he is the doctor, if you will, of that evil inclination. Even though we have here Ratzon Mekabel, Ratzon desire to receive, you know, he's the healer. He's the one that's going to change this desire to a Ratzon HaShpiyah, Ratzon, a desire to give. But let's continue. When the name Elohim is spelled in full, in all these three possible ways, it becomes sweetened. It conveys mercy instead of judgment. So all of them give us basically something good. Why? Because 300 plus 295 and 290 plus the Kolel, which is 291, gives you 886. And 886 is the same numerical value of Moshe and Israel together. So Moshe and Israel equals that. So what else? So it says here that the names Moshe and Israel have the total value of 886. Likewise, the name Elohim, spelled in full, all three ways have the total value of 886. So this indicates that through Moshe and the Bnei Yirael, the children of Israel, the attribute of judgments was sweetened, was transformed into mercy. Now, the name Yod-He and Vav-He, which represents the attribute of mercy, is in there. As you can see, this name basically, it's there, implying there, and also as we saw in the other Parsha, when it says Ani Yod He Vav He Ani Adonai, it's also 300, which it has to do with mercy as well. So here what we see is the following, is that if you consider the letters of the Yod He and Vav He spelled in full as they are here in the Parsufin, this is a Parsufin after the Sinsun, that the lights start, or the vessels start basically calculating how much light is going to receive, how much light is not going to receive, and it creates 5 Parsufim: Galgalta, Ab, and Ab is has to do with the name, which is 72, Sag, then we have Ma, and Bon, and this is all numerical or numbers based on the spelling of the name Yod-He and Vav-He. And what we do is the following. We're going to use the Yod, multiply by itself, Yod, Vav, and Dalet. That will give us 10, 6, and 4 is 20. So 20 times 20 is 400. The He, which is 5 and 10, is 15. 15 times 15, 225. Then Vav, which is 6, 1, and 6. That gives you 13. 13 times 13 equals 169. Then the 2He is basically 10. 10 times 10 equals 100. And what we're going to see is that when we add this and we subtract these 4 letters, which is the 4 here, and we subtract the 4 spelling from the 4 different parsufim, which is the other 4 here, it will give you 886. This amount of numbers in here will give you 894 minus 8 equals 886, which is the same as Moshe and Israel. So their total value 186 after subtracting 8 for the original Yod He and Vav He. So we see now how much Moshe and the Bnei Yirael accomplished through their good deeds, this sweetening of judgment, sweetening the name Elohim, basically, the name that represents judgment. They not only transformed the name Elohim, that is implies justice, into mercy, rather they numerically they made the name Elohim become exactly equal to the name Yod He and Vav He, as the verse says, that Hashem has taken Israel, the Yod He Vav He has taken Israel out of Egypt. It was the Yod He Vav He, as manifested purely by that name Yod He and Vav He, who took Israel out of Egypt. Okay? Now, chapter 18, verse 9, Yitro rejoice over all the good. So why the Torah use the unusual word ve'achad? Ve'achad ve'yachad means rejoice, instead of the more common besimach, which is rejoice. And the reason is, and this word, Vayachad is Vav, Yod, Chet, and Dalet. This word is related to the word Yahud. Yahud is Yod, Chet, Vav, Dalet, and the word Achdot, which means unity and oneness. Yitro united with the Jewish people and became as one with them. And it also says that he unified the name of the Creator in this world. He realized that the Creator's name is one, and there's no one else beside him. And all people do. Furthermore, the word Yachad, rejoiced, has a numerical value of 22 that represents the 22 letters of the Torah. And that means that Yitro acquired those 22 letters of the Torah. Additionally, we know that Cain's soul was a mixture of good and evil, as we have studied in Parsha in Bereshit, in the book of Bereshit. And Yitro's soul was from the good side of Cain. And since Yitro contained both parts of Cain, first Yitro contained both parts of Cain, perhaps he then merited to be purified. He purified the other part of Cain that was kind of negative in him. And he basically kept what was a good part of Cain in him. And until he came to this wilderness and accepted upon himself the Torah and the mitzvah. So basically, this means that he became one with the people. He basically, Yitro rejoiced over all the good. That means that Yitro unified his thought with the Creator, unified the name of the Creator when he saw all the good that God did for the Bnei Yirael, and became unified. V'yachad and his soul became exclusively all good, and he corrected that part in his soul from Cain. And over all the good, the words al-Khal overall, have the numerical value of 150, which is the same as Cain, which is Kuv and Nun, or can be said, Cain. Cain is referred to as the nest, which is kin, also a Kuv and a Nun, a nest of impurity. This is from Zohar, volume 1, page 54.8. As Ken and Cain are synonymous. How did Yitro merit to become exclusively the good part of Cain? Because he rejoiced that the YHVH and YHVH saved the Jewish people from Egypt, and as a result, he converted. He became one of them. Now, we're going to chapter 18, verse 11. Now I know that Hashem is greater than all the gods, for in the very matter in which the Egyptians had conspired against them, Hashem has punished them. Rabbi Yaakov Haseir now takes from Etz HaChaim, Gate 11, chapter 10. He says there are 10 Sefirot, and these 10 Sefirot represent the divine attributes, yet there are 11 Klipot, 11 shells. They're negative forces, which correspond to the 11 curses mentioned in Parshat Kitabo. There is a rule that whoever adds actually detracts, or less is more. Therefore, the Sefirot are more powerful than the Klipot, even though they're less. Yitro thought that the Klipot were more powerful because they were more numerous, and therefore he thought the people of Israel would not be able to leave Egypt. When Yitro heard that the YHVH struck Egypt with precisely 10 plagues, not 11, 10 plagues, he knew that the 10 Sefirot, the power of holiness, are what caused them to basically happen, for these plagues to happen. And the reason why the people of Israel were able to leave Egypt. And that these actually has destroyed the 11 Klipot and the nation that represented them, which is Egypt. It became clear to Yitro that the true power lies in the control of holiness over the dark shells, the Klipot. He understood that less is more, that the greater number of Klipot actually means that they are weaker. So the more Klipot, the weaker the dark side, or the dark side actually is, the side of unholiness is. So that's why he says, so Atayodati, that's what he's saying. Now I know, Yetro saying, that the people of Israel have left Egypt. Became clear that the true power came from these 10 Sefirot. That the Creator is greater than all the gods, which are the Klipots, the 11 Klipots. For in the very matter in which the Egyptians have conspired against the people of Israel, they were also punished. So the word Sadu, Sadu means conspire, alludes to the number 11. Why? Because when you take this word, and Sadu is as Zain, Dalet, Vav, Zain, Dalet, Vav, but then when you divide this word, what you're gonna write is Zain, Dalet, and then a space, Dalet, Vav, and you basically dividing this word into two. Even though it's 3 letters, now it forms 4 letters, and because the Dalet becomes the end, the sign Dalet, and then the beginning for the Dalet, Vav. So now it's as if the Dalet was double. The letter Zain Dalet, which is Zat, equals 11. However, the Dalet Vav equals 10. So it's and this word conspired was the 10 hidden, and the 10 hidden in there destroyed 11 Klipot. Now on chapter 18, verse 21. And you shall discern from among the entire people men of valor who are God-fearing, men of truth who despise personal gain, and appoint them over the people as leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of fifties, and leaders of tens. And when he says leaders here, the word is basically sarei. Sarei is like princess. And if you've been studying Kabbalah for a while, you understand that also princess, is a word given to angels, to malachim. So when we talk about the prince of Egypt basically is Samael, as we have studied in previous parsha, and he was defeated when the name Aleph Lamed, and the name El was taken away from his name. He became Sam, which means servant. Basically, he became servant in servitude. So he was powerless. He couldn't do nothing. So this is what we're gonna be studying now. Who are these princes, right? So, as you shall discern from among the entire people men of valor, right? And it refers to the people who fulfill the mitzvot for the sake of heaven. These people that are going to be chosen to be physical princes, physical judges, and people that will deliver basically justice and administration. There are people that are doing things lishma, for the sake of the Creator, not egoistic people. So basically, what he's talking here is about non-egoistic desires. It's desires or people that have corrected that egoistic desire and they have transformed it into an altruistic desire for the sake of heaven, and therefore create legions of angels because of what they do. These people, through their prayers and everything, and through the mouth, as we have studied in previous parsha as well, when we talk, we create angels. So these people are going to be creating angels because they're not doing things for their own sake. They're doing for the sake of heaven. They create legions. And the word Ha'il, which is what you're going to see when it says, that Anashei Ha'il. Ha'il means valor and also implies legion. Legions basically like an army. Then he says, Anashei Emet, God-fearing men of truth. It is only such people, the God-fearing men of truth, who can create angels through their good deeds. And what we're gonna see is that that in this part where it says, Yirei Elohim Anashei Emet, God-fearing men of truth. These four words start with the following letters: the Yod, Aleph, and Aleph. So we got one Yod and three Aleph. And they have the numerical value of 13. And the numerical value of 13 is basically the value of the word Ahava. Ahava means love. So this is a hint that these people that are doing this mitzvot and they're working for the sake of heaven, not for their own sake, they have love for the Creator, they have love for other human beings, and they fulfill the mitzvah not only out of fear of the Creator, but also because the love they have for the Creator. Now, these people are gonna be also men of truth who despise personal gain. So once again, non-egoistic desires. All desires that are gonna be for the sake of others, for the sake of heaven. These people who serve the Creator out of fear and love certainly possess these good traits, and they're men of truth who despise personal gains. They descend even the angels of the divine chariot, that they deserve that the angels of the divine chariot will protect them, basically. And then the verse continue, and appoint them over as leaders of thousands, leaders of hundreds, leaders of fifties, and leaders of tenth. And what he's doing is the following here. this is the code in this verse, is that these people that are going to be in charge of administering and doing justice, they need to be people of truth, people that are not, that have basically corrected their Yetzer Hara, their evil inclination, that they're working for the sake of heaven, not for their own sake. And they're gonna be creating angels with the words that they're saying, good angels, and they're gonna be and appoint them over. Basically, they're gonna be these people that are gonna be kind of like in charge of the making the decrees that these angels are going to follow. So that's why they are going to be appointed over thousands, and they're going to be leaders of thousands, leaders of 100, leaders of 50, and leaders of 10, which allude to the angels of the chariots. And these names of the chariots are Uriel, Gabriel, Raphael, Nuriel, and Michael. And leaders of thousands refer to Uriel and Gabriel. And the reason is that even though it says thousands, the word for thousand is alafim. And alafim start with an aleph, which is, aleph it means also one, right? Aleph, so it's single digit. So these two names, Uriel and Gabriel, the first letter is a single digit. So we have aleph is 1 and Gimel is 3. Now, when it says leaders of 100, it refers to Raphael. And the reason is that as the first letter of the name is a multiple of 100, so the resh is equal to 200. And then Nuriel, the letter for Nuriel, the first letter is Nun. Nun equals 50, so it's 50s, right? And then Michael. And Michael refers to the 10th because the mem has the numerical value of 40, so therefore it falls into the 10th. So it's telling him basically that these angels that I refer here as leaders, as Sarei are leaders because each one has number of leaders and officers under his charge. These angels have themselves also angels that they are in charge of. Okay, so it's like archangels, and they have angels that are under them. And these angels protect and guard everyone who is God-fearing and serve Hashem out of love. Okay, so now let's go to chapter 19, verses 2 and 3. They traveled from Rephidim and arrived at the wilderness of Sinai and encamped in the wilderness, and Israel encamped there opposite the mountain. Moshe ascended to Elohim, and Hashem called to him from the mountain, saying, so shall you say to the house of Jacob, and tell to the children of Israel. So you see here two levels. So it's first, let's say they arrive at the wilderness of Sinai, right? The Sinai, like I mentioned before, is basically as sinit, as hatred, and they camped there, and they were encamped there opposite to the mountain. So we're opposite to hatred is love. Moshe ascended to Elohim. Moshe ascended to this level that is called basically Bina, which is Elohim, and then says YHVH, called to him from the mountain. So YHVH is represented by the side of mercy. So mercy called from the top of the mountain. So over that hatred, he was called. And then he says, you shall say to the house of Jacob, and then tell the children of Israel. So here is mentioning two different levels of what's going on. The house of Jacob and the children of Israel. Do we have two different people here? And in reality is that this is talking about different levels of when it comes to in relation to what we're seeing with the children of Israel. And when we talk when Jacob was basically in a lower spiritual level, he was Jacob, but when he was in a higher level, it was Israel. So now what we have here is the house of Jacob and the children of Israel, which are basically these deeds of what we call seramping, right? Regarding the verse in Shemot 17:8, Amalek came and fought against Israel and Rephidim. Our sages say in Talmud Berachot 5b that the people of Israel have become weakened in their study of Torah, as the word Rephidim is related to the word Riphayon, which means weakness. Due to their weakness, Amalek was able to attack them. As the people of Israel approached Mount Sinai and desired to receive the Torah, they got rid of this weakness. They accepted upon themselves the seal of the Torah. They sanctified and purified themselves. They strengthened their love for each other and became as one man with one heart. In the merit of this sanctity, purity, and unity, Moshe was able to ascend to the YHVH, to that level, above the mountain of hatred. It was in their merit that Moshe has reached such a high spiritual level. As the Gemara says about other leading sages, a heavenly voice announced, "There is someone here who deserves to have the Shekhinah rest upon him, just like Moshe, but his generation is not worthy of us." This is from Sanhedrin 11a. So if a generation has a tzaddik, a righteous person, who is able to go this day, talking about today, higher and above that mountain and receive some revelation for us, he will be able only to do it according to the level of unity that we have down here, as basically depending on the love that we have for each other. But if we don't have that love for each other, then that person is not going to attain anything, because according to our desire to sanctify ourselves, to purify ourselves and unite ourselves and love ourselves, is what is going to help that person achieve the high level spirituality and give us that revelation. So this is why it is important, the commandment of loving our neighbors as ourselves. And I mentioned this over and over because this is what Kabbalah is all about. It's not about segulot. It is good, like I mentioned before, but that has to do with the physical and the spiritual. The real work is done, and it's harder than just a segulot. The real work is about loving our neighbors as ourselves. All right. Now, our patriarchs were referred to as mountains. This is according to Rosh Hashanah 16a, Talmud Rosh Hashanah. In the wilderness of Sinai, when the people of Israel became sanctified and unified as one, they also were considered as one mountain. So this mountain of hatred, Sinai, when they unify, purify, and sanctify themselves, it became a mountain of love, right? So it's now let's go to chapter 19, verse 4 and 6. You have seen what I did to Egypt, and that I have lifted you upon the wings of eagles, and brought you to me. And now if you hearken well to my voice, and guard my covenant, you shall be to me the most beloved treasure of all peoples, for the entire world is mine. You shall be to me a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. These are the words that you shall speak to the children of Israel. This verse is telling the Bnei Yirael about the mitzvot that are needed to rectify their spiritual body, that they must observe these mitzvot correctly and carefully. And these mitzvot include Brit Milah after 8 days, the tzitzit, the tefillin, Shabbat observant, building a sukkah, and taking the lulav. And these mitzvot were hinted in the following way. So now we're going to go verse by verse so we can see where it is hinted. You have seen that I did what I did to Egypt. So basically, it's you've seen the miracles that I did in Egypt and all the plagues that they suffer to take you out of there. And so now you know that I'm really, that you can fear me, and that you should keep my commandments, because I'm basically real, right? That I basically took you upon the wings of eagles. This alludes to the mitzvah of the tzitzit. The numerical value of Nesharim, which is eagles, is 600. That's Nun, Shin, Resh, Yod, and Mem. It's equal to 600, and it's the same as the word tzitzit, Sadik Yod Tav. Additionally, the word for wings, which is kanfei, wings also means corners. So as the tzitzit is placed in the corners of your garments, so it refers to that. So this implies that should be the mitzvah, the tzitzit, should be fulfilled by the children of Israel. And then he said, and brought you to me. The numerical value of the word atchen elai, you to me, is 504 after adding two, one for each word, because there's two words in here. And this is the same as the word totafot, which means or refers to the tefillin. And totafot, which we studied before, means like remembrance, as a remembrance. The totafot is also the tefillin. Then we says, and now if you hearken well to my voice, the initials of this word, hearken well to my voice, which is Shemua, Teshmua, Bekali, hearken well to my voice, spell the word Shabbat. So Shemua, is the first letter is Shin. Teshmua, the first letter is Tav. Bekoli is the first letter is a bait. So Shabbat is spelled on that part of the verse. And guard my commandment. And the commandment, Beriti, basically is the Brit, the covenant, so it has to do with the Brit Milah, which is the covenant of the circumcision. Then he says, and you shall be to me the most beloved treasure. This treasure refers to occupying ourselves with learning Torah and learning the secrets of the Torah, which is known more in modern times as Kabbalah. It also refers to the mitzvah of taking the lulav and constructing a sukkah. Then he says, Kili kol haaretz, for the entire world is mine. The main reason for keeping the mitzvot is so you will know that I am master over everything, and that you shall accept my authority regarding every single matter. And this sounds, like he's telling them, like, you do this or else, right? But in reality, this is a way that the Torah is written for us to understand it, like if it was a father telling us, now you know that I'm in business, and now that there's certain rules that you need to follow if you don't want to go the way that the Egyptians went, because they're cause and consequences, and I want to keep you from doing something bad, which is going to be a cause of a bad consequence. I want you to follow these rules, and these rules that you follow will become a cause that will give you good consequences, because the universe is perfect, is full of laws that are perfect. So even though it's written like he's trying to install or instill fear into them, he's just basically telling them, hey, cause and consequences is all there is. It comes all from me, but it's not like I'm pointing fingers, I'm gonna punish this one, I'm gonna punish this one. At the end, when you really look at it, these laws have consequences, so basically we are the ones punishing ourselves, okay, by our actions. And then he says, you shall be to me a kingdom of priests, Memalachet Kohanim. This is telling us that the prerequisite for keeping the Torah and mitzvah is that once body and soul should be purified and clean of sin, that we need to be having the Yetzer Hara, which is really hard to do, the Yetzer Hara under the control of our Kedusha. That we need to control egoistic desires, that if we have receive, we should give, and that if we receive and we keep, we become a klipa. And we cannot be a priest of this kingdom if we are thinking that way. This is also expressed in the Psalms, specifically Psalm 34, verse 15. Turn away from evil and afterward do good. Right? This is the most important thing, for otherwise the effort to learn the Torah and do the mitzvot are for nothing. While the person builds one side, he destroys the other. So you're building a good side, but then by doing all the things, you're destroying, what you've been building. So you're just wasting your time and energy. Therefore, the Jewish people are warned with this expression, Ve'atem, and you. In other words, in your own right, you must ensure that your body and soul are properly sanctified and purified, so the mitzvot will take effect upon them. You must make yourself a kingdom of priests, meaning that you should purify yourself. Then you will become a holy nation, right? Ve'goy kadosh. You will be a holy nation with true observance of Torah mitzvot, okay? And this is basically what this Parsha is telling us, is basically to accept the seal of the Torah, to accept these 10 commandments and to put them on us, and to understand that inside ourselves, because all these things, that we just talk, it's all inside ourselves, that we're born in a world that is full of the power of Elohim, which is the power of judgment. In a world of judgment, we need to be the ones that, by following the Torah and commandments, by unifying ourselves, by becoming Israel, and by following the commandments, meaning unifying ourselves with the Moshe, the spiritual force of Moshe, we become then that 886, which is very important for us, because that's Brachamin, how we sweeten the name of Elohim and convert it to the YHVH, okay? And how we have all these things, the YHVH with desire and healing. This basically is the desire of the Creator, is to heal us from the evil inclination, but we need to do our job. It's up to us to follow these commandments, because if we don't follow these commandments, we're the ones that are going to be victims of the consequences that our actions are going to have. And thus the reason of the Shovavim. The Shovavim is basically, if we're irresponsible, the law of cause and effect will get us in our lives, and will get us in a negative way. So keep this in mind, as next week we're going to be studying Mishpatim, the last Parsha, and this is the intention during these 6 weeks. This 6 weeks is about that. It's about get off of your Egypt, of your egoistic desire that keep you stagnant, that keep you, basically you cannot move, and ask for the Creator. Cry to the Creator, and the Creator will send this force of Moshe to tell your egoistic desire to let my people go. And in that way, you will start your own exodus. And that exodus starts, once exodus starts, you need to do like the children of Israel, leave quickly before you go like, no, I need to go back to Egypt. No, leave quickly in a haste, right? And then when you reach that mountain of hatred, when you start what is called, you start recognizing the evil in yourself, that you're an egoistic person. That's Mount Sinai, the mountain of hatred, that I hate other people for no reason, that I really truly hate other people, and I just love myself egoistically. But I think I'm loving them, but when I'm really loving them, I When I say I love them, I do things for them, I really want something in exchange. Either a feeling of feeling good, or a feeling of I want something in return, which is truly more egoistic than anything else. And once we achieve that acknowledgement of the recognition of evil in our lives, then we can work on loving each other. We need to purify ourselves, sanctify ourselves, and start loving other people, forcing our egoistic nature to love others as ourselves. And that's when we become one man, one soul, and that's how we can receive the light of Torah in our lives. And this is only if we rise like Moshe above the mountain of hatred, above the mountain that we see as scary. It can be the place of holiness and revelation, or it can be the place that will bury us and not give us any light, but become our burial site. So this is all for now. We'll see you once again in our next lesson, Parsha Mishpatim. I hope you have found this lesson interesting and insightful. And Shabbat Shalom. I'll see you next time.